And joining us now, our friend Tom Friedman of the New York Times, the author of a new book, Hot, Flat, and Crowded, Why We Need a Green Revolution and How It Can Renew America. And it is an excellent essay on where we are in the world today. And you talk a lot about how the rest of the world is catching up with us. And while that's good for them, it's not always good for us.
And you can hear their footsteps now, Bob.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about what we just talked about here with these two senators. As he was leaving there, you heard Senator Dodd say that he thinks that Rick Wagner, the chairman of GM, has to go, and we're going to have new management at these companies, or at least think about it in some of the other companies as part of a condition if indeed there is a bailout. What's your take on that? You've written a lot about this.
Well, Bob, looks like I'm going to be a future shareholder of General Motors as a taxpayer. And as a future shareholder of General Motors, I sure don't want to have the management that drove this company into a ditch stay on and hope that they're going to somehow miraculously drive it out. So I would totally endorse new management. By the way, if we could, and we're talking about bringing in a broom, of course we can't do this. We should also be talking about all those Michigan lawmakers who for 30 years protected these companies to death by insulating them from all the environmental pressures, competitive pressures of change, by preventing any mileage standards. These are people, remember, who oppose seatbelts, rear view mirrors, just about any innovation you could think of. So we need a real change of thinking here. You need a change of thinking by management, but you need a change of thinking, Bob, by the congressmen and senators who protected these guys year after year. GM can only do two things today really well, Bob. They can lobby Congress and they can advertise at the Super Bowl. That's about it. And until they get back to having the talent and management to make cars that people want to drive, that is the core problem. Go on a college campus today, Bob. How many young people do you see driving Pontiacs? You don't see it. That's the core problem. They haven't made cars people want to run.
Where did they go wrong? Because you've written so much about this, about the connectedness of the world economy. There are people in the world who are making some pretty good cars. Why can't we make a good car? The Detroit would argue we do make good cars, but whatever the case, they're having problems selling them. What happened?
The core problem, Bob, is that they created a business model because of the concessions they made to the unions and whatnot, and many other problems, where they could really only make money making big cars, making SUVs, Hummers, and trucks. And so that was the only way they could make money. So then what they did was they tried to create a universe, basically, where gasoline would be cheap and you could would only have to sell and make those big cars. So if you remember a couple of years ago, as gasoline prices rose, what was their response? Was it to move immediately to electric cars or more efficient cars? No, they came out with a program for $1.99 a gallon gas for a year if you bought a Hummer or a Yukon or a Suburban. It was like a crack dealer saying, Bob, I'm going to guarantee you free crack or reduced crack for a year. It wasn't, I'm going to get you off your addiction. And so they created a universe and then they tried to protect it. And then the world basically impinged on them with higher energy prices and many other higher costs. Look, do you remember when Hillary Clinton was pushing her national health care program? Did you see the auto companies out there saying, we need a national health care program? After all, we have these huge burdens of health care costs. No, they were fat, dumb, and happy then. Now they tell us, oh, it's terrible. We've got these health care costs, woe is me. But were they out there campaigning for a national health care plan that they would have been the biggest beneficiaries of? No. They were brain dead. And it's a travesty that the American people are in this terrible choice today, which the two senators outlined, which is either we bail out people who really don't deserve to be bailed out. By the way, one of these car companies, let's remember, is a private equity firm, Cerebus Capital. We're going to be bailing out a private equity firm.
Chrysler.
That's Chrysler, the guys who own Chrysler, who bought Chrysler, basically. They got the car company for free. They're really buying the financing arm, and they wanted the GM financing arm with it. That was what they bought, basically. And they thought they'd just strip off the car company. Then oil prices went up, and they got stuck holding the car company. We're bailing those guys out, okay? Let's the Cerberus Capital people throw in some more money now, Why should we as taxpayers be bailing out a private equity firm?
So you favor letting the car companies go down?
No, I don't. What I favor is if we're going to save them, then I want new management, and I want to see a real plan for their survival. I understand what Senator Dodd was saying. It's terrible, the jobs that could be lost. And we learned from Lehman Brothers going broke what the unintended consequences of this can be. but show me a plan. Because, Bob, the world has changed around these car companies. Let's use the example of the music business and entertainment, which you know so well. Somebody came along and developed a new way to produce music. It was the MP3 player, the PC. Kids at home could produce their own music. And they created Napster and all those programs. Then someone came along called Steve Jobs and the iPod. They figured a new way to distribute music. The music business got flattened. Same in the news business. People found a new way to generate news at home with blogging and a new way to distribute it. Bob, the same thing's happening in the car world. In India today, Tata's making a $2,500 car. There's companies coming up now with whole new models for electric cars, new ways to produce, new ways to energize and distribute the fuel for these cars. There's a revolution happening in this business. And if we give money to these people, and it is not with a plan to take advantage of this revolution, it would be, Bob, as if today we said, let's give money to make RCA Victor record players in the world of iPods. Okay, who's going to give the newspaper business a buyout in the age of the blogger? Okay, all right, well, that's what we're doing. That's what we're talking about.
Let's talk a little bit about the recent terrorism that we saw surface in India. It reminded us that all our problems are not here in the United States. What do you make of this, and what is the new administration faced with here?
It's a terrible problem that we face here because Pakistan is a failing state, and it's been a failing state for a long time. And at the same time, you still have Al-Qaeda and all its various offshoots, whatever brand names they go under out there. But Bob, if there's one thing we've learned from Iraq, in my view, it's the simple message: it takes a village. Okay, what do I mean by that? The situation turned in our favor in Iraq, not just because we sent more troops. That was necessary, but it was not sufficient. The sufficient ingredient was that Sunni Muslims in Iraq said, you guys are radical, you are dangerous to our health, and we are going to take you on. That's why the surge worked. In the Sunni community, the same in the Shiite community. Until that happens in Pakistan, until you get millions of people in the streets in Pakistan who are ready to demonstrate against Danish cartoons that insult the Prophet Muhammad, until you get those same millions of people ready to demonstrate against people who murder real people, not cartoon characters, you're not going to get a change.
What can we do to change that?
Well, I think that what we can do, obviously, we've got to help the new Pakistani government as much as we can. It's not perfect, it's weak, but they are decent people trying to tilt Pakistan in a better direction. They are definitely a start. But we also have to challenge them. We have to get in your face. Why are you out in the streets protesting for people about Danish cartoons and not people who are murdered in real life on the streets of India or your own towns?
All right, Tom Friedman, always great to have you.
Thanks, Bob.